Welcome to Innovating Clinical Trials, the podcast designed for clinical research professionals eager to deepen their understanding of clinical trials through concise, insightful segments. Join your hosts, Liam Eves and Ted Trafford, as they uncover the core issues in clinical research, reflect on the industry, and challenge conventional wisdom.
Hello, Ted. How are you?
Hey, Liam. I'm doing good.
Oh,
It's a little overcast here today, but I'm feeling good. I'm running ready to go and seize the day.
can't pay day up, is it? Like seize the day. Yeah, I like that. Well, I was on LinkedIn the other day, and I read something that I'm still struggling with reconciling myself with, and you actually wrote it, so I want to
Okay.
just I want to hear about this because I can't quite believe it. It feels like it's more of a figment of my imagination than reality. So I read on the post that you had been working in clinical trials for 31 years, but you don't, because no one can see you. For those that haven't seen Ted looks no more than 33 probably.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I think if I shape my beard, that you'd think I look like 25.
I'd say even younger than that. I'd say
Yeah.
Younger than that. That was incredible. I did not realize that.
31 years. It's been an incredible journey. And the post that I wrote, I started the post. I was trying to be a little cheeky, and I said after 31 years in the workforce, I've learned nothing, and ... And then I went on to say, without the support of the people who surround me, without questioning why we do things, I've learned nothing without intentionally listening to others. I've learned nothing without taking the time to write down ideas. And I've learned nothing by sitting back and waiting for the opportunities to come to me.
Yeah.
And then probably the two biggest things, I've learned nothing without making a lot of mistakes along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned nothing unless I get back up after being knocked down.
That's so true.
And so, yes, it's funny. I spend time just thinking about, what I've learned over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually feel like I'm learning more now.
Mm-hmm.
And than I did in the early days. And part of it is because of conversations, like the conversations we have. I learned so much from you and from the people that I work with and the people, at the pharmaceutical companies and CROs that I engage with. It's just a constant learning cycle, and I love it.
And I think it's fascinating because I think that, like, I have this sort of like lens that I see what you just mentioned about like you're learning more now. It's like I always think about circle of competence, and that you have, if you imagine like a circle and your knowledge base is that circle of competence, is that when you start in the industry, your circle of competence is low because you don't really know anything, right? So
mine was non-existent.
So like the perimeter of that circle is quite a small perimeter because
it is.
You don't know how much you don't know,
right?
But as you get more knowledge, that circle expands and your perimeter becomes greater and greater. So you realize that like this paradoxical like change happens where you go, I actually know a lot more, but recognize that I know a lot less than what I did when I first started.
That's so true. I actually feel dumber than when I started in clinical trials. I think back then I thought I was pretty smart, but now I realize how much I still have yet to learn.
But do you not think it's like, it's also, I think some of that as well is that I think that there's also a confidence that happens as you mature as well, right? Where you start to realize that actually I don't have to be walking around pretending I know to know a thing. It's actually it's the stupidest thing you can do, is that you're effectively stepping outside your circle of competence into another area and pretending that you understand the thing. And the reality is that, like, for any listeners that are younger, is like the best thing you can do is to stick your hand up and say, listen, I don't know, can you explain this to me? Because by default then your knowledge base will grow rather than pretending it to grow.
Yes. And that also, just that approach helps build connection.
Yeah.
And I think if you allow yourself to be a little vulnerable, there's opportunity to really increase both the relationships that you have with others, but also your knowledge. And I love to learn.
Yeah.
Like I just feed off of it. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's fascinating that your last 2 points there about having the sort of courage to try and fail, but also the bravery to get back up and start again. And I think that in our industry, for obvious reasons like regulations and things, and we're not saying about like, okay, fail at some of the regulations, but it's like, it's actually trying to understand those areas of like, what surface can you play on from a regulatory perspective, and then also be brave enough to try things that just because someone hasn't mentioned a thing before or it's never been tried, to actually have a go, as long as you're not breaking the law or the regs and all the rest of it. But I think that sometimes that they're not knowing about the regs and the legalities of things like prohibits people from perhaps trying and expanding themselves.
Yeah, and that's where you need to take the time to bounce ideas off other people. Because I've got, I'd say a few people, you being one of them, who I really feel comfortable getting that reality check from, saying, here's an idea.
Yeah.
And what do you think? Am I on the right track here?
Yeah.
And I've had some ideas and had these trusted colleagues that are willing to tell me, no.
Yeah.
That doesn't land for me.
No.
And so, and that's really valuable. I'm so grateful to the people around me for sure.
Yeah.
And I think, I was thinking on this topic about, what have I learned over the last 31 years in clinical trials? And the first thought that came into my head, it's not so much, I guess, what I learned, but my belief in the value of clinical trials has grown immensely and grows more every passing year, that the work that we do in clinical trials is so incredible. And, hearing the stories of how clinical trials help people and give them hope is such an amazing thing. And so that's one of the things I've learned. And I think we talked on a previous podcast about the fact that things take a lot longer than I think they will.
Yeah.
That's so true for me. I have this brilliant idea and I think, let's execute.
Yeah.
And it's a challenge to really map it out with realistic time frame.
Yeah.
And another one is recruitment's really hard. I mentioned to you on the previous podcast, I've started this project of just documenting everything that impacts recruitment. And I think the list is going to be endless, to be honest. But now I've started grouping them in categories. And so I'm able to actually evaluate. And my goal here is to be able to prioritize, to say, okay, this
it's going to be
has the biggest impact. And how do we impact this item in the clinical trial?
I don't know if you've ever seen a knowledge graph. You've seen a knowledge graph where you have like the nodes, and then the nodes connect to different. So each node almost like it's like a neural network in the brain. Is that each node has a connection to one or many other nodes, and I sort of like seeing this sort of visualization is that if you pull on one, by default it has second, third, fourth, fifth order consequences. That there's a chain reaction that happens. And I think it's really hard for us to like think about those to your like, infinite recruitment list point, is that I think it's really hard for us to see and make sense of how those things all connect together and what will impact me, because
That's right.
our brain space is just not designed to do something. Is to be simple, right? Is that we want a simple story that we can. I would say to people like this, it amazes me, some of these like companies that are able to raise money, and you're like, that's like a really simple story, but it doesn't pass the robustness test. But because the simple story makes sense, then it's sometimes more investable, which sort of like blows my mind.
I love that you brought that up, because the story is on my list of recruitment things that affect recruitment.
Yeah.
And a lot of sponsors don't understand how important it is to have a compelling story about their molecule and the clinical trial.
Yeah.
And I think that sponsors actually need someone to come in and help them articulate that story.
It's critical.
And then they need to tell that story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reality is, I always think about these things through like a evolutionary psychology lens. I just go, okay, like what like would have worked 40,000 years ago? What was like a power thing, right? 40,000 years ago, that like all the technology now sort of clears us. We think about technology as a solution, and to your point, is like story is one of the most profound changes. And like you listen to some of the great speeches and things like that, they'll tell stories and it'll have particular rhythms and flows. And that's because we'd sit around the campfire and we'd tell stories about the hunt that had just happened, right? Or whatever it'd be able to have. But those stories, because we can imagine them, they become a real thing. And it's like, to your point around what is the story? What is the origin of this drug? Why is it that you're trying to do it? What is it trying to help? And things like that. And to make it real, because that's what people touch with. That they touch with the reality of like the story, and also what benefit is going to have them, and they are going to do that equation themselves to make that decision. But I think that sometimes we become too scientific and not necessarily human enough thinking about these things.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Well,
one of the last things I wanted to touch on before we go is we have, like, I've seen technology just advance like crazy in clinical trials over the years. And one of the things that really sticks with me is not the technology. It's actually the people.
Yeah.
And I have such a firm belief in people can be really incredible and do such spectacular things and come up with such amazing ideas.
Yeah.
And we just need to engage and walk alongside them so that we can help them build out those solutions.
Yeah.
And be open to listening to the ideas that others have. Yeah. And that's why I'm really excited. We've got some amazing guests lined up on the podcast, and I can't wait to hear their ideas.
Yeah.
And learn from them and dig in and question and really continue to build, what we started here with the Innovating Clinical Trials podcast. I'm really looking forward to the next few months, especially.
Definitely. We've got some great guests, and I think that, like you say, is that just to be able to ask the questions, learn, and also, to your point, just like connect with people, either people we know or people that we're meeting and not going to get to know. I think that it's just it's a human endeavor ultimately. But Ted, here's to you in another 31 years.
Okay. Well, we'll see how that goes. Yeah. A few more years anyways, but 31, I don't know. That might, how old will I be then? I don't see, my 60, mind can't 60, even do the math.
64, I think, from my
64. Awesome. Thanks, buddy.
Cool. All right, so enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll speak later.
Yeah, you too. Yes. Bye now.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Innovating Clinical Trials podcast. Wow, 31 years. Time has gone by so fast. A special thank you to all the people who have supported me along the way. I hope you know how important you are to me. If the episode inspired some ideas or questions, we can be reached through our website at innovatingclinicaltrials.com. Follow the Innovating Clinical Trials podcast on LinkedIn or your favorite streaming service. While you're there, give us a like. The Innovating Clinical Trials podcast is hosted by Liam Eves and Ted Trafford and is produced by Doreen Chakurthi. Opinions expressed are those of the participants and not their respective employers.